The summer night in rural South Carolina was shattered by violence. On June 7, 2021, in the fading light at the edge of the family's hunting lodge, 54-year-old attorney Alex Murdaugh made a gruesome discovery. His wife, Maggie Murdaugh, 52, and their son Paul Murdaugh, 22, lay dead by the dog kennels. Both bore multiple bullet wounds, the result of a sudden ambush in the woods. In that moment, the grand Murdaugh legacy, 3 generations of powerful prosecutors in Hampton County, began its dramatic collapse. The once quiet estate at Moselle became a crime scene of unimaginable horror. The Moselle Hunting Lodge estate, the Murdaugh family's expansive property in Islandton, South Carolina, where Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were found shot to death near the dog kennels. Please help this channel grow. Like the video, try the new hype feature, leave a comment and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. Alex Murdaugh called 911 in a panic, claiming he had returned home to find his wife and son shot in cold blood. The South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, SLED, would later confirm that both victims suffered multiple gunshot wounds. In an instant, 2 beloved lives were snuffed out and a dynasty's secrets began to unravel. The Murdaughs were an American legal royal family. For over a century, 3 generations had held prosecutorial power in Hampton County. Alex, once a rising star in that dynasty, inherited not only a law firm but also a reputation for influence. The sprawling 1,700-acre Moselle estate, thick pine forests, manicured fields, and a gated lodge was both home and symbol of Murdaugh privilege. But behind the facade of southern gentility, trouble had quietly built. In February 2019, 2.5 years before the murders, 19-year-old Mallory Beach, a low-country teenager, died in a late-night boat crash off Paris Island. On that fatal night, Paul Murdaugh had been partying with friends. Investigators say Paul's speedboat, reportedly fueled by alcohol, struck a bridge support, throwing Mallory to her death. Paul was subsequently charged with felony boating under the influence and causing serious bodily injury. The case ignited local controversy. Many wondered aloud if the Murdaugh family's clout had shielded Paul from full accountability. Mallory's parents, Renee and Philip Beach, soon filed a wrongful death lawsuit not just against the bar and the convenience store that sold Paul alcohol, but also naming Alex Murdaugh as the boat's registered owner and Paul's older brother, Buster, whose ID Paul had used to buy the alcohol. Paul insisted he was not impaired, and he pleaded not guilty to all charges. The Beach family's attorneys would later bluntly accuse the Murdaughs of obstruction. A South Carolina trooper's report noted that Alex and his own father rushed to a hospital interview with Paul's friends and essentially halted the questioning. That night, Renee Beach recalled, "I'm worried about finding my child, and they're worried about how they're going to cover up Paul driving." Paul's boat case dragged on for 2 years. The specter of Mallory's death hung over the Murdaughs. Meanwhile, Alex privately struggled with a severe opioid addiction that he later admitted had grown into a years-long battle. Colleagues began to notice irregularities in the law firm and rumors circulated about missing funds, but the Murdaugh name still carried weight in the community. 2 days before the murders, on June 5, 2021, Alex had obtained a temporary injunction against his estranged wife Sonia Farrick, allowing him visitation with his 3-year-old daughter. On the surface it seemed like family business as usual. But on June 7, in the quiet of dusk, everything changed. That Sunday evening was like any other on the Moselle property until horror struck. According to investigators, Alex Murdaugh went out that afternoon and returned later. When he arrived, he followed the path toward the kennels where the family's hound dogs were kept. In the fading light, he stumbled upon a nightmare. Maggie and Paul lay motionless beside the kennel building, blood seeping into the grass. Maggie had been shot at close range with an assault-style rifle, sustaining 4 or 5 rounds to the torso and back. Paul was shot twice with a shotgun. One blast tore through his chest and a second, bone-piercing shot entered his shoulder and exited his skull. Forensics later determined that 2 different weapons were used, one .300 blackout rifle and one shotgun, both believed to be from the Murdaugh's own collection. In fact, prosecutors would explicitly note at trial that family weapons were used to commit this crime, but the guns themselves had disappeared. Bullet damage at the Moselle Lodge, shattered glass with gouge marks left at the scene where Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were killed. This forensic evidence was later catalogued by investigators. There were no witnesses to the shooting, and no surveillance cameras covered the lonely gravel road and kennel area. Alex told authorities he had been out when the murders occurred, returning only to find his wife and son bleeding in the grass. The crime scene was an eerie tableau: spent shell casings, disrupted dog food bowls, and seared bullet holes in nearby windows. The family's hunting dogs, aware of the horror, were frantic, but they offered only silence and confusion. Inside the darkened lodge, Buster Murdaugh, Alex's other son, was asleep. He would emerge later to the same tragic discovery. The brutality of the double homicide sent shockwaves through the community. How could a powerhouse family be so violently felled? The scene around the kennels told a grim story of a swift and ruthless attack, leaving 2 loved ones dead and an entire family in tatters. From the first moments after the killings, law enforcement knew this case would be anything but ordinary. The Colleton County Sheriff's Office initially responded to the 911 call. Given the Murdaugh's history, SLED took over early to avoid any appearance of bias. For the next 2 years, every aspect of the murders and the family's history would be combed over by investigators. Within days, Alex and Buster Murdaugh announced a $100,000 reward for information leading to the killers, publicly pleading for justice. Alex insisted he had no idea who could have done this. The Murdaugh family's own lawyers even hired a private investigator to find the truth. In media interviews, Alex's brothers Randy and John Marvin Murdaugh stood by him. Randy, himself an attorney at the family firm, solemnly told Good Morning America that there's no possible way Alex was involved. He loved Maggie and loved Paul like nothing else. But behind the scenes, investigators were digging deeper. DNA, fingerprints, and ballistic evidence were collected from the kennels and lodge. Crime scene photos captured details: shredded tent dog food, crash helmets, and bullet holes. SLED agents cataloged bullet casings and determined one shell had markings matching the Murdaugh's own inventory of blackout ammunition. Detectives learned that Maggie had been shot with a high-powered rifle and Paul with a shotgun. Significantly, they found Maggie's cell phone was missing from the scene. Prosecutors would later show that the phone's GPS signals popped up miles away along a rural road the next morning. The killers remained elusive and public pressure mounted. In late June 2021, SLED quietly reopened several cold cases involving the family. Newly surfaced information linked the murders to the mysterious 2015 death of a teen named Stephen Smith in a highway hit and run, and to the 2018 death of longtime Murdaugh housekeeper Gloria Satterfield. Gloria, who had worked for the family for decades, had fallen inside the Moselle home in 2018. Her sons later sued Alex, alleging he swindled them out of a settlement. In October 2021, Alex was formally charged with stealing from Gloria's family, allegations that he had diverted settlement funds into phantom accounts. Meanwhile, a shocking side story was unfolding. On September 4, 2021, Alex Murdaugh himself called 911 from a remote stretch of road. He claimed a stranger in a passing truck had pulled over and shot him in the head. He was rushed to a Savannah hospital with a grazing wound and skull fracture. Initially, the family spokesperson supported the bizarre tale. But within days, SLED announced it was investigating the shooting as a suicide for hire. Detectives arrested acquaintance Curtis Eddie Smith, charging him with helping Alex orchestrate his own killing so Alex's son Buster could collect a $10 million life insurance payout. Alex's attorneys later admitted Alex had paid Smith to shoot him, hoping to shed his life insurance on his overdose addiction problems. Every twist in the saga spilled into the public record. By autumn 2021, Alex's law firm sued him for fraud, accusing him of funneling millions from clients and firm accounts into secret accounts. The South Carolina bar suspended his law license. By October, SLED had enough evidence to arrest him on multiple counts of embezzlement related to the Satterfield estate. Alex was released on bond, reportedly $20,000, and immediately returned to rehab, publicly apologizing that the murders and addiction had exacerbated his mistakes. All this while, the murder inquiry continued. A breakthrough came from tech, cell phone records and video. In February 2023 at trial, it emerged that Paul's cell phone found in a trash can at the kennel held a few seconds of video taken just minutes before the shooting. In that grainy footage, Alex's own voice can be heard off camera as he walks near the kennel dogs. The image shows one of the family's dogs, Bubba, bawling and shaking a chicken in his mouth. In court, prosecutor Creighton Waters noted wryly that if Bubba didn't have that chicken, maybe we would not have heard Alex's voice on there. Alex had long insisted he wasn't even at the kennels that night, but there he was on the tape. Under heavy cross-examination, Alex ultimately confessed he had lied about that detail, claiming his opioid addiction had made him paranoid. Investigators had also tracked Maggie's phone, which mysteriously reappeared a day later by the roadside. GPS data showed Alex's truck drove right past that spot on the night of the murders. Prosecutors argued he had tossed it out the window to destroy evidence. Meanwhile, data experts stitched together Alex's digital trail: texts deleted, calls scrubbed. Notably, investigators found call logs showing Maggie's phone dialed Alex multiple times that night, logs that inexplicably had no corresponding records on his own phone. By the time of the 2023 trial, much of the forensic puzzle was assembled. Witnesses testified to shell casings matching the Murdaugh's guns, to timelines of Alex's movements, and to the booming gunfire heard at the kennels. Even family friends were called. One boat owner placed Alex's firearm purchase a year earlier, another neighbor recalled seeing the truck on the service road. Every road seemed to lead back to Alex Murdaugh. In July 2022, more than a year after the killings, a Colleton County grand jury finally charged Alex Murdaugh with 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Maggie and Paul. He pleaded not guilty and was held without bail. The courtroom that January 2023 was packed. Media, town residents, and even Mallory Beach's parents sat behind closed doors. Over 6 intense weeks, both sides presented evidence. The defense floated wild theories including that the family dog or a phantom second shooter was responsible, but the prosecution's case was damning. The cell phone video, the DNA evidence, the phone records and Alex's own inconsistent statements all formed a chain of proof. On March 2, 2023, after just over 3 hours of jury deliberation, the verdict was announced, guilty on all counts. The judge, Clifton Newman, a veteran jurist assigned to the case, denied a defense motion for a mistrial, bluntly declaring that the evidence of guilt is overwhelming. The country watched on as live feeds broadcast the moment this prominent figure was finally held to account. The next day, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison, 2 life terms, one for Maggie and one for Paul, to be served consecutively. He showed no emotion as Judge Newman reminded the courtroom of the broken family. In the same week, Alex pleaded guilty to the federal charges of financial crimes, bank and wire fraud he had accrued over the prior decades, admitting to stealing from clients and insurance schemes. By late November 2023, he had also accepted a plea deal on dozens of state counts: forgery, money laundering, breach of trust, totaling a 27-year sentence. Meanwhile, Mallory Beach's family continued their own fight for justice. A decade's worth of investigation sparked new civil actions. Mallory's wrongful death lawsuit against the boat's alcohol vendor and the Murdaughs proceeded, and in March 2023 the Moselle property was sold for $3.9 million. Part of that sale money was earmarked for Mallory's family and other victims of Paul's crash. Yet for Renee and Philip Beach, the sense of closure remained elusive. As Philip said, he, Alex, did not deserve it. Neither did his mama, a bitter reflection that for Mallory's parents, no outcome could ever truly fix what was lost. The Murdaugh family's name now lives in headlines not as noble prosecutors but as a cautionary tale. The patriarch who once wielded power is serving life in a maximum security prison. The dynastic law firm is disbanded, its clients scattered. The boat accident that haunted them, the staged suicide, the betrayals of trust, all threads in the fabric of a fall from grace. Even community members recall whispered rumors of mysterious deaths and cover-ups that are now being examined under new light. The once grand estate has been emptied of its original owners. At a public auction, even Alex's monogram tumblers and Maggie's bicycle were sold off. In the end, the Murdaugh saga is more than a murder story, it is a tragedy of privilege and deceit. Maggie and Paul's killing solved one mystery, but revealed so many others. As the judge noted, justice was served for one family, yet another family, Mallory Beach's, still feels justice is unfinished. The fall of the Murdaugh dynasty leaves a haunting question for us all. How fragile is the trust we place in institutions, and at what point must we reckon with those who abuse it? For now, the South Carolina Lowcountry remembers 2 lives cut short and a household turned upside down, a grim reminder that no legacy is above the law.